Greetings to you and welcome to this episode of Grace Podcast. I'm Timothy Muse. I'll be your host as we spend this time together today. It's a joy to be with you. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to thank you for making this podcast a part of your journey. And I want to thank you for being on the journey, that self-discovery, that exploring, that investigating areas of your life that need some energy or attention, those places that you could really dig in and advance and grow yourself. You know, here at Grace Podcasting, we want you to be the best you. Now, that doesn't mean that where you are is bad. It's not a critique or judgment on you in any way, shape, or form. Please don't hear that. Please don't think that that's the case. Actually, what it means is when we want you to be the best you, we want you to examine those places that do need that energy. And a courageous person is willing to look into themselves and say, you know, there's parts of me that need some expression, need some attention, need some growth and work. You know, and when we work on those places, other places take a back seat. It's an ebb and flow. We go forward and backward. And that's okay. That's what growth looks like. That's what maturity looks like. You're not looking to be perfect. You're looking for progress. You're looking to be better. You're looking to influence the circle around you, influence yourself, to grow into the better expression of yourself. Because when one person grows, we all grow. We are interconnected as human community. And when one person adds value into the human expression grows. So good for you for being here. Even if you're just listening, even if you're just starting to ask the question, even if you're just like, I'm not sure. Maybe there's something I need to look at. Maybe there's something I need to, massage inside of me a little bit. If you're just listening, if this is your first time here, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're at the podcast. If you have been here for a while, then welcome back. It's a joy to have you. It's a joy to be walking with you. If this podcast is helpful, please share it out there. Put it out there in your social media feeds. I post on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, and Facebook. If you follow me or the life coaching on any one of those feeds, you're going to see these episodes. If you are on one of the listening platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or Amazon Music, then follow us. Give us a rating and review. Every positive rating and review tells the platform people are listening, and you'll get a notification when new episodes come out. And if you want to reach out to me directly, gracelifecoaching.com is the website. I'd love to hear from you. If you've got some questions, you want to just do a little examination, have a dialogue, you want to start doing some coaching, whatever, gracelifecoaching.com is the way you can get a hold of me. I would love to hear from you. So I want to dig into something today. I read a quote a while ago that really kind of affected me, and I've been thinking a lot about it. We've been doing some series work, and we're going to get back into some of that, but I just want to kind of dwell on this a little bit today. A lesson that has power to save you from disappointment and frustration and insecurity and wasted energy. And it really has helped me, and I continue to deal with it. I don't speak from a place of, hey, I've got all this together. No, I speak from a place that this is some of my own personal struggle, my own professional struggle. And as I struggle and learn and grow, I want to share that with you so that you can take advantage of what I've learned. So the quote was really, it's something that really kind of blew past me, but then it really started to hit home. Don't sit at tables you aren't invited to. Don't sit at tables you aren't invited to. Now, before you think, this is about being excluded or giving up on opportunities, stay with me, because that's not what I'm talking about. This isn't about shrinking yourself. This isn't about believing you're not worthy. This isn't about waiting for permission to live your life. This is about recognizing where your energy belongs and where it doesn't. It's about understanding that some doors are closed for a reason. Some conversations aren't yours to join. Some relationships aren't yours to force. And some tables were never meant for you to be seated at. Even if the food looks good. Even if the food looks good. When we learn this lesson, we stop chasing acceptance and start building confidence. We stop begging for belonging and start creating it. So that's what I want to explore. I want to explore what this means. I want to explore why it's so hard and how embracing this mindset can completely change your path. Okay? So it really asks the question, why do we keep pulling up a chair? Why do we keep wanting to sit at tables that we haven't been invited to? Well, let's be honest. Most of us have spent time trying to fit into where we don't belong, right? Maybe it's a friend group, or maybe it's at a workplace or in a relationship, or maybe it's in an organization or a group or a church or a social circle. We've all experienced that feeling of trying to earn a seat, trying to prove ourselves, trying to become something others will finally accept. Why do we do this? Because deep down, every human being wants to belong. We do. We want to belong. We want connection. We want significance. We want to feel seen. And there's nothing wrong with those desires. Nothing at all. The problem comes when belonging becomes more important than authenticity. When acceptance becomes more important than self-respect. We start sacrificing who we are just to stay at the table that was never wanted us there in the first place. That's exhausting, and it's unsustainable. When we try to sit at tables that we don't belong, when we try to pull up a chair to places that doesn't want us there, it's exhausting, and it's unsustainable. Have you ever noticed how much energy it takes just to stay where you merely tolerated? You overthink everything. You replay conversations. You wonder if people really like you. You constantly feel like you're auditioning. You're never at peace. You're never at peace in those places. That's because your spirit, your soul, your energy knows what your mind doesn't want to admit. You don't belong there. People who genuinely want you around don't make you fight for every inch of space. Healthy relationships require they require connection. They don't require endless convincing. Real opportunities don't require you to betray yourself. Think about that. How much time have you spent trying to earn acceptance from people who had already decided not to give it to you? How many years have you spent proving your worth to someone who wasn't paying attention? How much emotional energy has been wasted sitting outside a door that was never going to open? That cost is enormous. And most people don't realize how much of their life they're losing while they wait, trying to belong at a table that they were never invited to. Now, one of the hardest pieces to realize about this is that rejection is not always judgment. Rejection is not always judgment. We kind of live in a world that if someone rejects us, then they're judging us. You're not good enough, you're not important enough, what have you. It's a judgment thing. Sometimes it's redirection. Sometimes life, sometimes the universe, sometimes God, whatever energy that you want to incorporate, chooses a door and closes it because there's a better one ahead. But we become so focused on the closed door that we miss the opportunities waiting elsewhere. Think about your own life. How many times have you been disappointed by something that later turned out to be a blessing, turned out to be something good? That job you didn't get, or that relationship that ended, or that opportunity that disappeared. At the time, it felt devastating. It did, didn't it? And it always does. But years later, being able to look back, you realize it was necessary. Not every no is a punishment. Some no's are protection. Some are preparation. And some are simply redirection. The challenge is trusting that truth while you're living through it. And that's a hard thing to do. Trusting that truth while you're living through it. Facing a rejection and thinking, oh, I'm not worthy, but then something else comes along that is better. Trusting that rejection isn't always judgment. It isn't always an attack on personal worth, but it is something in us or something around us that is redirecting us to something greater. I don't want to get into woo-hoo mysticism here. I'm not really going down that road because that's not really where I go. That's not how I feel within the midst of this, and that's not what I want to present. But opportunities present themselves. Opportunities are out there. And when we strive for one opportunity that is not going to fulfill us, we miss the possibility of another opportunity out there. One of the hardest things to understand and grasp is that rejection is not always judgment. And a no is not always punishment. Sometimes a no is protection. Even if the person saying no or the circumstance saying no doesn't realize it, doesn't accept it, a no isn't always punishment, okay? So in that, we learn to stop chasing, okay? Particularly with people. This might be difficult for some listeners to understand. It might be difficult for you to really grasp. But stop chasing people. Stop chasing friendships. Stop chasing approval. Stop chasing invitations. If someone consistently shows you that you're not a priority, believe them, even if you want to be. This is hard. But if someone consistently shows you that you're not a priority, believe them. That doesn't mean become bitter. That doesn't mean becoming angry. It simply means respecting that reality. If someone doesn't open up a chair for you at a table, don't force it. Believe them. If you walk up to a table and there's a group of people and nobody says, hey, sit down and join us, if they make you stand, believe them. Believe them. Believe that reality, that you're just not welcome there. Okay? Respect it. You can love people without chasing them. You can care about people without pursuing them endlessly. You can wish them well while moving forward. One of the healthiest things you'll ever do is stop trying to convince others of your value. Your worth isn't determined by their recognition. Your value isn't determined by their approval. You're valuable before they noticed you, and you will remain valuable whether they ever do or not. And that is a vital lesson to learn in life. You were valuable before you ever walked up to that table. You remain valuable whether you're invited to sit at that table or not. And your value will remain when you walk away. That is a huge key. And really, it is something is vastly important for us to embrace. Our value as beings, our value as humans, your value as a person is not dependent on what other people see or don't see. Your value is intrinsic. Your value is because you are, period. You have value because you are, period. I think it's one of the challenges that we face in our society when we look at the stratification of wealth and meaning. You know, we see homeless people. In general, the society sees homeless people as having no value. Well, they have value because they're people. They're in circumstances that haven't allowed them to own a home or what have you, and we can go down a whole different road on that, and I'm not going to. But they're valuable because they're people. We have intrinsic value because we exist. Whether we're welcomed at the biggest table or not doesn't matter. I have value as a person. Whether I'm invited to the White House or to, Elon Musk's table, I still have value. Okay? And when we realize that our value is because we exist, not because who invites us to sit down or tables we force ourselves to sit down in, that is where real power comes from. Your value doesn't depend on someone else's approval. Your value is there because you're valuable. And you're valuable before you were noticed, and you will be valuable even when no one notices you. Okay? And if that's the case, if that's where you are, then it's time to start going to work in a different direction. Here's where it gets exciting. Instead of obsessing over tables where you were unwanted, build your own. Build your own. Instead of trying to force yourself into communities or relationships where you have to work massively hard with little return of investment, where you're constantly questioning whether you belong or not, build your own. Create your own community. Start your own project. Launch your own dreams. Gather your own people. Too many people spend years trying to join someone else's vision while neglecting the vision inside themselves. Too many people spend years trying to belly up to a table that they're really not wanted at, rather than building their own table. What if the energy you're spending seeking acceptance could be used to create something meaningful, something different? What if your greatest opportunity isn't finding a seat at someone else's table, but building your own? What if your greatest opportunity is creating a table where others feel welcome? That's power. That's value. That's growth. That's confidence. The people who change the world don't spend their lives waiting for an invitation. They spend their lives creating opportunities. That's where the shift comes in, and that's where it gets exciting. Look, we spend energy, lots of energy, trying to belly up to tables we're not invited to, trying to sit down at tables we don't have an invitation. Maybe it's time to shift that energy from trying to sit at someone else's table to build your own table, to build your own opportunity, because that's where self-respect comes in. We respect ourselves enough to do our own work. I mean, think about it. You walk into a room where nobody acknowledges you. Nobody makes eye contact. Nobody saves you a seat. Nobody includes you in a conversation. You could spend the entire evening, you could spend the entire time wondering what's wrong with you, or you could simply recognize that you're in the wrong room. That's self-respect, my friends. Self-respect says, I don't need to force connection. I matter as a person. I don't need to force connection. I don't need to beg for attention. I don't need to shrink myself to fit in. I can leave with dignity. I'm in the wrong room. There's no seat for me here. There's no part of me in the conversation. I'm just in the wrong room. Many people stay in the wrong room because they fear being alone, not fitting in. But sometimes leaving the wrong room is exactly how you find the right one. You don't find the right room while you're staying in the wrong one, forcing yourself in. That's self-respect. Having the self-respect to acknowledge, look, I'm in the wrong room. I don't have a chair. I don't have a conversation. Everybody's doing their thing and nobody's acknowledging me. Nobody is inviting me in. I'm just in the wrong room. There's no judgment in that. There's no judgment in you or the room. It's just acknowledging the reality. I'm in the wrong room. And that's where confidence comes in. Having the confidence to understand, the self-respect to realize I'm just in the wrong room. Confidence is often misunderstood because we look in the world and we see all of these images of confident people. People think confidence means being loud or being fearless or being the center of attention. Real confidence is quieter than that. Real confidence says, if I'm welcome, wonderful. If I'm not welcome, that's okay too. Confidence doesn't need constant validation. Confidence doesn't need every door to open. Confidence doesn't panic when rejected. Confidence understands that every opportunity is not meant for every person. When you develop this kind of confidence, you become emotionally free. Other people's opinions stop controlling your mood. Other people's acceptance stop defining your identity. You become grounded, stable, and secure because you're confident in yourself. I know what I have. I know what I bring. If I walk in a room and nobody wants it, it doesn't judgment on me. It just means I'm in the wrong room. It just means I'm in the wrong energy. And there's something bigger to this as well. There's a spiritual truth that underlines this. And now whether your spirituality connects to the universe or God or whatever you claim, 95% of the world believe in an energy bigger than ourselves. And some people call it the universe, some people call it creation, some people call it God. I'm not saying anything about which one is better or worse. You know me, I'm a God person. I'm a Christian. That is my background. I'm unapologetic about that. But I'm not going to push that on you or anybody else. Whatever spiritual reality that you dwell in, whatever energy that you walk with in your life, whether it's the universe or creation or God or what have you, many of us spend our lives knocking on doors that energy never intended us to enter. We become frustrated. We become angry. We become discouraged. We ask, why isn't this working? Why isn't the universe opening up this opportunity for me? Why isn't God opening up this relationship for me? Why isn't creation opening up this path for me? Maybe it's because it isn't supposed to. Sometimes our greatest growth happens when we stop forcing outcomes and start paying attention to where we're genuinely being led. The right opportunities often come with peace. The right relationships often come with mutual effort. The right doors tend to open naturally over time as we progress through life. That doesn't mean it's easy. Life is not easy, and we know that. It does mean that we learn to stop confusing resistance with guidance and path. Not every struggle is a sign to push harder. Sometimes it's a sign to move differently. Not every hurdle that we face is something that we need to overcome. Sometimes it means we need to find a new path, because sometimes that's the path that's being laid out for us. So I want you to ask yourself some questions. Where are you seeking acceptance right now? What table are you trying desperately to sit at? Who are you trying to impress? What relationships are you forcing? What opportunities are you chasing that may no longer be aligned with who you're becoming? And perhaps the most important question, what could you create if you'd redirected all that energy towards your own growth, towards your own path, towards your own being? I'd invite you to sit with those questions. Journal about them or reflect on them or just dwell with them. You may discover that the answer you've been seeking isn't someone else's table. It's building your own. You may discover that the desire to sit at someone else's table is so exhausting and draining that you need to build your own. So let me leave you with this. You don't need to force your way into every room. You don't. You don't need every person to like you. You don't need every opportunity. You don't need every invitation. Your job isn't to convince people you belong. Your job, your path, is to become so rooted in your own worth that you can recognize where you truly belong. Because some tables will welcome you and some won't. That's just life. Don't waste years trying to sit where you're merely tolerated. Go where you're celebrated. Go where you're respected. Go where your gifts are valued. And when you can't find that place, then build it, create it, become it. Because the world doesn't need another person desperately seeking a seat. The world needs more people brave enough to create one. That's our path. That's where we are. So don't sit at tables you're not invited to. Make your own. Make your own table. And then invite others to sit at it and see where the opportunities go from there. That's what I got for you for today, my friends. I hope it's helpful. I really do. If it is, please share it out there. Put it out there on your feeds. Put it out there on your listening platforms. If you want to reach out to me directly, as always, gracelifecoaching.com is the website. I truly would love to hear from you in any way that I could possibly help out. Because at Grace Life Coaching, we want you to be the best you.